this ride, you might get wet. Warning, you might laugh so hard your cheeks will sweat. With Ben and Skin, homegrown homeboys from Richardson, they're gonna soak ya. Woo! Rubber dub dub, it's the Super Soaker.
Here are your hosts for the Super Soaker, Ben and Skin. Ooh, soaked.
Yes. Hello and welcome. This is the best thing that we do, in my opinion, the Super Soaker. It happens every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. I'm Ben Rogers. That's Jeff Skin Wade. Today's going to be a quickie because really we only have about 45 minutes, so we're going to get you on your way. It's going to be a Cowboys quickie too. Really, we need to talk Dallas Cowboys, and we could probably go the whole soaker just talking about this Cowboys debacle. But Skin, how you doing today, brother?
Man, I'm doing well. Everybody loves Erection Day. It's huge for the country, and I'm excited about that. And I'm excited to talk Cowboys because nothing gets me more charged up than a huge seismic trade that shakes the landscape of the NFL.
Yeah, how about that? So the Dallas Cowboys acquire Jonathan Mingo, the 39th pick from the 2023 draft. They finally made a deal. It's hard, man. It's a difficult thing when your team is sinking, you're dead, and you're at a funeral, and you're like, yeah, but hey, even though he's dead, he just got the flu shot. You're like, but you just put it in his dead corpse, like you
I
can't.
thought it was the vax that killed him. You're saying he got vax while he was dead. This is
after they put it in the coffin. Yeah, dude, this is bad. But it's not as bad as everyone's making it out to be. You know, this guy. Look, he sucked in Carolina, but Carolina sucks. He was the 39th pick, so a high draft pick, and just in 2023, which means you're going to have control of him inexpensively for a while. And yeah, I've never heard of him. He's not, if you're into fantasy football, no one has him. 3% of rosters have Jonathan Mingo, but nobody really has anybody in Carolina. They suck. Anyways, when you start looking at it, you're like, wait a second. So they traded a 4th-round pick for – is that what they traded, a 4th?
Yeah, so they traded a 4th-round pick, and then I believe they got a 6th back or a 7th back.
Yeah. Okay, so when you look at it through that lens and you say, okay, DeAndre Hopkins was acquired for a 5th-round pick. Amari Cooper traded for a 5th and then later traded for a 3rd.
My God.
Devontae Adams, a 4th-round pick. Deontay Johnson, a 5th-round pick. You see much better receivers acquired for less. But I think this is about getting a guy that they probably liked. Everything I read about him, big physical guy, like can block well. He's got high end speed. He's got all the tools to be good someday, which is why he was a high draft pick. And he's going to be cheap for a while. And so I don't think this was the move that, okay, we're going for it. We're still alive. We got this. I think this was a long-term roster move.
Yeah, honestly, it was more like the Trey Lance deal, however you feel about that. It was a guy that they liked and they evaluated. And so they traded a 4th-round pick for a guy that they think is a 2nd-round talent. That's what it is. And to your point about him being under contract, he's on a rookie deal, so I don't know how much more money's guaranteed, but any kind of bonus or whatever, Carolina absorbs that. So it's kind of like, all right, if we got this guy with our 4th-round pick in this upcoming draft, we would have been happy because, like Carolina thought he was a 2nd-round player. If you look at the evaluations online, he's the type of athlete that you want, right? And this is also a team that we agree is devoid of talent at the skill position. So it really, whatever your evaluation is of this trade is going to probably be more apt sometime next year. And along those same lines, this is that kind of age-old discussion. Like if you talk about, all right, we need to tank and get picks and all this kind of stuff. It's like, okay, who's making the picks? Do you have confidence in the people making the picks? And that's ultimately how you do or don't feel about your organization. If you trust the talent evaluators and the people in charge, they're not going to hit every time. Even the best GMs in history didn't hit every time. But are they more consistently making the right picks and or moves than not? And when they really are in a position to have to do something seismic, did they do it right? I think to me, that's how I evaluate organizations. And so to me, it's like, because it's trade deadline day, and the Cowboys are 3-5 or whatever their record is, everyone's going to look at that. This is similar to me to the Trey Lance deal. They made a midseason trade for a guy that they may want to use in the future. It's just, he'll be on the field this year, and it's not a backup quarterback. So that's why, the distinction is there.
I like it better than the Trey Lance deal for this reason. They made the Trey Lance deal, I think, to put pressure on Dak, or because they didn't believe in Dak. And they're like, hey, look, here's a guy who was one of the highest picks in the draft. Let's go get him. Oh, it's only a 4th-round pick to get him. But if they were committed to Dak and knew they were going to pay Dak $60 million a year, you never make that deal. And I hate that they just lost a 4th-round pick. I saw somebody on Twitter going, hey, man, the Cowboys got to play Trey Lance the rest of the year, because what's the point of playing Cooper Rush? You can trade Trey Lance. I'm like, no, you can't. He's a free agent. He's gone. So that is a complete wasted 4th-round pick. And whenever I watch these badass 4th-round running backs on these other teams, I'm like, oh my God, they need that so much. So losing a 4th-round pick is gonna hurt. But again, 2nd-round talent, maybe he's good. But right now, the way the state of the Cowboys universe, the fandom has fucking had it. It's like, this sucks. It's a shit show. They're dead. Jerry's going to ruin this thing into perpetuity. So anything they do right now is going to be shat upon by the fan base, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the other thing that, I have to remind myself this, I don't even really think it's about Jerry. I think Jerry just goes out there and talks. It's kind of like the Democratic Party. They're going, oh my God, Biden's about to talk. Stop him. Stop him. Well, he's the president. No, he's not. Stop him. It's almost like that exact same thing. Jerry's not in the war room watching Mingo tape. He's not. Okay. He's not in the room watching Trey Lance tape. He's not. He's making energy deals, and he's working with blockchain. Now he obviously, they got to get him to sign off on stuff, but this is where you get into the whole, do they have the right people, making the decisions? And, I think probably this decision to go get Mingo had more to do with Steven and Clay, Will. So it's like, do we believe that those guys in charge? I would be really surprised if Mike McCarthy, dead man walking, had any input on this move. He didn't have any input on the Trey Lance deal, and he still had a year left on his deal when they did that. So Jerry goes on the fan and goes and gets in front of cameras, and he's the one that does all the talking, but he's not the one that's making these personnel decisions. And he's just the face of ineptitude. And that's where you kind of get into, I think, the hopelessness that a lot of fans have. They project that on Jerry because he steps out there and he makes it about himself. But it is organizational top to bottom. And I don't know where those new voices come from, because honestly, I think the new voices that are going to have some influence on the club are going to be Jerry's grandkids, because that's the way this thing is set up structurally.
But I do blame Jerry, and I do think Jerry's more culpable in this than you do, because it's his culture. It's like if you work at a company and you have a shitty boss, it's like, man, right, even though he's not making the day-to-day decisions and every single thing, it's like, hey, man, that's his culture. This is the environment he's created. He is in charge of this, and he's the only one who can change it and make it different. So I do think Jerry is culpable and responsible in a lot of ways. But
I want to ask you about that. Let's say, and this is always, I don't mean this in a dark way. I mean this in a way that people have lifespans. If Jerry were to sadly pass away next week, how much does the culture change, in your opinion?
Well, I think that would yet to be seen. I think it would change, though. I think it would change in that it might be a succession style battle to see who takes over. I don't even like to think in those terms, because
no, I get it.
I want Jerry to be around for a long time.
Sure. That's kind of my point, though. It's like when the thing is a family, and it's a very, very powerful family, and then right under the patriarch are 2 or 3 kids that are then going to take over, unless they have these like grand designs about, because remember, they've grown up in that same culture.
Right.
And their dad has been very, very good to them. I'm not saying that every family, every friend, everybody has disagreements. But I guess what I'm saying is I kind of suspect, it's just speculation, and it is. I suspect that culture that exists there is the same culture that the Jones kids would adopt and continue to play out. I don't think they probably have all these things they want to do that Jerry's holding them back from. I could be way wrong about that.
But we won't know until we get to that point. And I think one of the biggest problems with the Cowboys culture is too many cooks in the kitchen. And so the Hail Mary prayer hope would be that if Steven or Charlotte or whoever would eventually take over someday, if somebody would be decisive and say, no, this person is leading the way. Mm-hmm. This person's vision, whether it's our general manager, our head coach, or whether it's me, Stephen Jones, or whoever it may be, if they say, no, this is our identity, this is our philosophy, this is what we believe in, and I'm not going to listen. Like when you give a coordinator who is going to be gone next year too much power, then you end up taking the draft pick away from Will McClay, and a coach is picking a guy that he thinks fits his scheme, and it's like, dude, you're not even here anymore. And I look at Mozzie Smith, I look at Schoonmaker, I pray that Guyton's not a miss. The Cowboys have done very well in the draft, better than most teams. Up and down the draft, they do well. And to your earlier point, it's easy to go to any team and say, look, they missed on this pick.
Yeah.
It's easy to do that. I have confidence in Will McClay, but whatever dysfunction is happening and this environment that Jerry has created, when you're missing on those early picks, it's like, wait, why are you missing on the easy? You're missing layups. Mm-hmm. That not every first and second round pick is a guarantee, but dude, how do you miss that bad on Mozzie Smith? How do you miss that bad on Schoonmaker? I don't know. And I think about the dysfunction that the Cowboys are experiencing, and it's like, why, is it personnel? Is it coaching? Is it, and obviously it's injuries too. I mean, they're just hit with the injury bug this year. But even if, the defense, you could say, okay, Micah, Tank, Sam Williams, Nealon, Bland, Diggs, probably not even back to where he was. So everybody's hurt, so your defense is going to suck. The offense is what is even more concerning to me because that you've been relatively healthy. I don't know if Zach Martin's playing through an injury. Obviously, he's not playing the way he typically does. Right. Terrence Steele's been bad. Guyton obviously has struggled, but
huge letdown on the offensive line, and very few teams can have that poor of offensive line play and be good. And then when you combine it with their lack of weapons, that's a bad offensive mix.
Yeah. So who is responsible for saying this offense is good to go? Who is responsible for saying, yes, we don't need a running back. We got Zeke, or, we can go find a retread or whatever. We don't need to invest in running back. This offensive line is good. We've got enough receivers. Who is that person? Was that Will McClay? Was that McCarthy? Was Jerry and the front office and Steven, were they saying, hey, no, we're not going to invest a bunch in this because we may have a whole new offensive scheme the following year with new person. So I don't know, but that's the smoking gun on this particular season because injuries are going to happen. That's no one's fault. They're just getting destroyed by injuries. But whoever said, yeah, this offense is good, that person is the biggest problem in the building.
Without being in the building, I just think it's a collective. And I also think that, a big part of this is a decade or more of cap mismanagement. That's a big part of this, too. And when you already have, and I know everyone's sitting there going, well, wait a minute, they have $20 million of cap room right now. But they also have this future money they've got to spend. And that's the other thing, that when you're evaluating how the Cowboys front office operates, they very rarely bring in guys from the outside. They sign guys that they drafted. Mm-hmm. And I think in general, for a team that's coming off 3 straight 12-win seasons, that's supportive of, hey man, they've done better drafting than bad drafting. Now maybe they love their guys too much, but you can start stacking it up, right? Like you can go, wow, that Gallup thing absolutely hurt them in a big way. But then at the same time, I'm not watching the Jets, but KT was telling me Tyron's been terrible. And so that was pretty good that they walked away from him at the time that they did. Now they didn't get a good enough replacement for him, but that's why I think a new coaching staff would be huge for this team. But I also don't have confidence in the Cowboys to go get that right coach, because if you look at all of their coaching hires since basically Jimmy, every single one of them has been uninspired, promoting from within, or retread. And so it is, if you look at the direction any entity goes, there's innovation within those entities. And then the rest of the league adapts. I could give you a million examples in the NBA. We obviously see a lot of it in the NFL. They went and got a retread. And that retread, honestly, was saved by another retread in Dan Quinn. But I think Dan Quinn's showing everybody he's got a lot of juice. But, you've been big on the Bill Belichick thing.
Well, I want to be clear about this. I'm not pushing for that.
No, I know.
When I found out that Steven and Belichick had this incredible relationship, I was like, okay, that might align at some point.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, Ben. I'm not saying that you want Belichick. I'm saying that is the definition of retread.
Mm-hmm.
You went and got a guy. This will be his fourth head coaching job, and he's in his 70s, or maybe it's his third. I'm trying to think of the lineage there. But my point is that is the very definition of a retread. And that's a guy that Jerry's going to look at and go, man, he's been around the entire time I'm in the league. I know this guy. And so that's the kind of thing that stagnates you. This is just, when I was saying that this team is joyless, it's just tired. Everything about it is tired. We're on the third decade of this act, and there doesn't appear to be any hope whatsoever of any innovation or change coming around the corner for the team to evolve with the league.
Here's who I think I would be happy with. Here's who I think could be coming around the corner. Here's who I think could be the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, Cliff Kingsbury.
I'd be way on board with that. I was trying to get him here after the Tech debacle.
Cowboys are familiar with him. They have a great relationship with him. It'd be, you'd kind of be taking him from the Commanders like they took Dan Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
He's a quarterback whisperer. He's a great play caller. That could revive this. Now, you clearly still have to fix your offensive and defensive line.
Right.
That's why, when we talk about, is it a retool? Is it a rebuild? You make a great point that if you have a good quarterback, you're in the mix in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I love Dak. Sorry. I'm one of these people that I look at the bigger body of work. I don't just go, oh my God, he's had 8 bad games. That he must totally suck. I'm like, last year, arguably he was the second best quarterback in the NFL. He didn't suddenly forget how to play football. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's that the offensive line sucks. Maybe it's that there's no running game. Maybe it's because the scheme sucks. Maybe it's because receivers aren't getting open. Maybe it's because there's really only one good receiver on the team. I still like Dak, but in terms of if you have to rebuild with a $60 million quarterback, that's bad. But maybe let's call it a retool. You need to retool your offensive and defensive lines. And BB's a great pick. I love BB. I think BB's great. Maybe Guyton can be better. Maybe he'll improve. He's a first-round talent. But you've got to fix the rest of that offensive line, have a more creative scheme, get better weapons in there. Your defense, you need to get healthy, and you need to finally find some defensive tackles. But am I suddenly sitting here believing that maybe they could be good again next year or the year after?
They could be good again next year, Ben. They absolutely could. The number one thing is it's the NFL. I think what you have to evaluate is, do you feel like the team was quote unquote good the last 3 years when they won 12 games every year?
Yes.
For 3 years. So if you think that team was good, let's look at why that team is not good anymore. Who are the badasses that they lost in the offseason that makes you think that now they're a team that needs to completely rebuild? Do you know what they lost? They lost depth. Name the person that was on the team last year that was a game changer for you. There wasn't one. They lost 6 functional players, guys that are a part of your team. They give you snaps. They work into the whole thing. One, they lost their defensive coordinator who came in here and immediately turned them into a team that gets turnovers. Like overnight, they jumped from the bottom of the league. We went like a fucking decade without them getting turnovers. And overnight, Dan Quinn made them a team that was ball hawking and creating turnovers. Then you had that. But aside from that, name me the players that you've lost from last year's team that you're like, oh shit, how do we move forward? There aren't any. They're all functional guys. They're linemen, but none of them were big playmakers. You didn't lose crazy depth at the linebacking core. You didn't lose crazy depth in your secondary. None of it. So my point is that team that won had 3 straight 12-win seasons. First of all, they do need to get better on their offensive and defensive line, and I don't think we could have anticipated those two entities getting beat up as badly as they did. And with all that depth leaving, they didn't have anybody that could step up and hold down the fort. That's where they got killed. So my point is the scheme is off and they lost depth, but they didn't lose any of their star players from 3 straight 12-win seasons. So it's easier to get back there than I think what people are feeling like right now. What fans are feeling is just the weight of 3 decades of it kind of being the same thing over and over.
Yeah, for sure. I think there was some erosion. I think Guyton is a drop off from what Tyron this year, who's struggling. I think Guyton has been. I think Guyton has been worse, and so there's a big drop off from last year. This year at tackle, I think Zach Martin is a huge difference, and I think he's trying to play hurt. He's such a phenomenal player,
right?
But he's has his struggles. But I was talking to a guy who is a former NFL quarterback. I'm just going to say it like that.
Okay.
And I was asking him about his opinion with what's going on with the Cowboys. And I was like, is it scheme? Is it talent? What is it? And he thought that he said McCarthy's not the worst play caller in the league, but he's towards the back end. He's in the back third.
He's a
retread. And, you've had, prior to that, Kellen Moore, he goes, I don't think Kellen was the best, but Kellen was probably like 12 through 18, somewhere in the middle of the pack.
His offenses statistically are in the top 5 or 6.
And so you got rid of Kellen Moore, and you lost a lot of creativity that he brought to the table, and you went to McCarthy, and he goes, McCarthy's just he's not good. He's never going to scheme something open. He's not going to have some magical, oh my God, he's outwitting the other team. Mm-hmm. And then if you have a talent drop off, you're kind of cooked because he can't coach you out of that situation. There's no creativity that he brings to the table. And the Cowboys, look, they knew they probably weren't going to keep the guy. They didn't extend, he is a dead coach walking. So again, you kind of knew this was going to be a lost season when you look at that.
Yeah, they were going to give him a chance. Look, again, then this is the conversation we had yesterday about, well, where's Mike McCarthy? Someone's going to hire him immediately. I'm like, are they? Like, that's not the direction the league is going. What is for this team, their evaluation of what they need out of a head coach? They haven't been to a conference title game in 28 years. And a league that is designed for everyone to take a turn, they have been on the outside for 28 years. So it doesn't matter that McCarthy had 3 straight 12-win seasons. He had one job. One job was to at least get to the conference title game in his 5 years here. And if he had done that this year, then there would have been some discussions about extending him. But there is no reason to extend him based on his 1-loss percentage. They did that already for a whole decade with Jason Garrett. They did that an entire decade. They're like, well, we're good with Jason, but they never got over the hump. And so everything that was going to happen with McCarthy was going to be based on that. The only way that McCarthy could have saved this season was if he had had a defensive coordinator come in here to energize this defense. But man, with the injuries, it's unlikely that was going to happen. The
right.
Zimmer thing has been an abject failure, but dude, he signed a 1-year contract. Do you know why? Because people weren't trying to sign him. if Kingsbury is the guy that comes in here, he's going to need to bring in a badass defensive coordinator with him. And that's what they did. And I don't know if that was his first year in Arizona or the second year. I can't remember. But the other thing too with Kingsbury is if you look at the kind of quarterbacks he likes, I don't know that Dak is that style of quarterback. I think he's innovative enough to make an offense work, with Dak, because I'm with you. I believe in Dak, but that's a big part of the issue moving forward. Like systematically, structurally, everything about this has been in this mode for decades. So again, I ask you, where is that going to come from? And it would have to be those people that are already in place, recognizing that about themselves and about the way that they do business and being willing to make a drastic change. Maybe they are. I don't know. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the case.
So, dude, we got a lot of people tuning in right now. Thank you guys very much. We are the Ben and Skin Show. You can hear us weekdays 3 to 6 on 97.1 The Eagle. We do this Super Soaker every Tuesday and Thursday morning at 10 a.m. We do this live stream. And then we also do a podcast for the Mavericks, which is called Poor Spacing for Studio 41. That comes out Wednesdays at 6 on the Dallas Mavericks YouTube channel. I think this is the biggest question for the Cowboys moving forward. Outside of who is going to be your coach and how are you going to save the roster. I think what you do with Micah Parsons is crucial because it's, if you're going to rebuild, that's hard to do with a $60 million quarterback. You've paid him, you've paid CD Lamb. Are you, when you start looking at these huge contracts, you start thinking, okay, well, we can't really do much in free agency. We probably need to have a bunch of draft picks because we need guys that are on the cheap, which is why they like this Jonathan Mingo guy. Mm-hmm. So I reached out to somebody in the league just to try to get an idea of somebody who works in the business. Hey, what do you think the market value would be for Micah Parsons? And he thought that you could get 2 first-round picks for him. Okay. At worst, you could get a first and a second. But he thought you might be able to get 2 first-round picks and maybe a fifth or something like that. Okay. But let's just say you could get 2 first-round picks for Micah Parsons this offseason. Mm-hmm. Would you entertain that? 2 first-round picks when you've got your $60 million quarterback, you need draft picks, or are you in go-for-it-now mode with your broken battleship and your $60 million quarterback to where, no, hell no, you keep Micah Parsons because he makes your team so much better?
I mean, okay, I'm assuming if someone is going after Micah Parsons, it's like, what is this, the 20th pick in the draft? Like,
yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's not going to be one of the worst teams in the league with one of your most favorable top 5 draft picks, for sure. It's going to be a team that somehow, and it takes a team that can give up that package to have them put them over the top and can also afford to pay him over $30 million a year.
Well, there's a couple things that go into this. And part of it is whatever their evaluation is of this current draft coming up. If they think there's guys there that make it worthwhile, then, I consider it. Paying Micah is going to be hard because it's going to take a lot of money, but I also think he's a game-changing player, but he's going to be a game-changing player. Not an expert on this, but just everything I read, this isn't the right system for a lot of their defensive players. So am I bringing in a defensive coordinator that's going to utilize him the way Dan Quinn did? I think that makes a big difference. If I'm going back to retread city, then, sure. I'm of the belief that in football, the only time you ever quote unquote tank is if you don't have a quarterback and it's quarterback draft. And even that can F you. Has there been how many teams in the last decade, or let's say half decade even, have drafted better than the San Francisco 49ers? Very few. And look what they did for Trey Lance when they didn't think they had a quarterback, for Brock Purdy magically fell into their lap. So I would be more inclined to keep him because I know he can be a game-changing player. But they need to have a structure in place with knowing what kind of football they want to play, and do they have the coaches to go implement that kind of football? The other thing that sucks too, Ben, is at the age that he's at. I mean, we kind of have to assume the best days of DeMarcus Lawrence are behind him, and I think he's in the last year of his deal. I believe. Could be wrong on that. So when you factor that in, all right, where is this draft on defensive linemen? Can I get 2 defensive linemen for Micah Parsons, and is that what I need?
Well, it would probably be a first-round pick in the upcoming draft and a first-round pick in the next year.
Yeah.
Right. Or the next year after that, which is hard. And I love Micah, and he is an absolute, game-changing player. And when you look at the numbers when he's in versus when he's out, they're wildly different. And right. I do think that this is not a great scheme for him for whatever reason. This is not for him what Dan Quinn was for him, which maybe they should have fired McCarthy and just made Dan Quinn the head coach, and then
they should have.
Your scheme defensively would have been fine. I don't know.
And your offensive coordinator would have been Cliff Kingsbury. Like if Dan Quinn had been promoted to head coach, he would have had to get an offensive coordinator. Why wouldn't he have gotten the guy he just got?
Right.
Unless Cliff was just dying to work with this rookie quarterback that, by the way, has exceeded everyone's expectations. Nobody saw this coming.
Yeah.
Good for him, though. Good for the team. Good evaluation.
So I don't know, man. Let's say the 20th pick in this draft, and then the 20th pick in the next year's draft, or something like that. I'd be
more inclined to keep him, I think.
I just talking it out here, I think I would keep him too. He's just an absolute game-changing player, and when you have him in a situation to succeed, he's the most dominant player on the field. In the right scheme, he puts pressure on the quarterback every single time they drop back. That's what it was like with Dan Quinn as the coordinator. That's what it was like with Micah Parsons. It's like I was more excited to watch the defense than I was to watch the offense, which rarely happens for me.
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, where's Micah? How are they going to stop him? Is he going to get triple teamed on this? He's getting to the quarterback. He's pressuring him on almost every play, and he could easily still be that. So
think about this, Ben. When you're watching a game, this is last year or the year before, it's 3rd and 7. What is the announcing team talking about? Look where Micah's lined up.
Yeah.
Like that. Like those players change games. And they got him with the 12th pick in the draft, something like that. Their second best player is CeeDee Lamb. They got him with the 17th pick in the draft. They have that again. Like it comes down to what do you believe the last 3 years was like for the Dallas Cowboys? And if you believe that they were closer to being really good, I mean, we said this when he came in. And by the way, I was wrong. I was like, we should hire Matt Rule. That guy, look at what he did in Baylor. This guy's. Man, let's get that guy in here. That guy sucked. I was wrong. I think he's coaching Nebraska now. I can't even remember.
That's some bullshit, Skin.
I know, but that it's like you get caught up in the things at the time. But like none of us wanted McCarthy here. We all thought he was a retread. And I think one of the things that he's good at is he's good at just like the stuff that doesn't happen in a game. He's good at whatever happens at practice and talking, football and then guys believing in him, like football players seem to, believe in him and react to him. He's good at that stuff. But then when you get in the playoffs, what's going to get you over the top? And if you look at these guys that are having success, it's guys that are thinking through the game in a way that people that are caught up in 15 years ago aren't doing. I mean, Jesus Christ, McCarthy is still talking about establishing the run game. And the whole idea is, hey, man, you can establish the run game with short passes. Like, there's a lot of different ways to do that. What you can't do is you can't be 2nd and 8 every fucking drive.
Dude, so many times it's like, let's hand the ball off to a mediocre running back behind a mediocre offensive line, and you're starting off with 2nd and 9, 2nd and 11. Like, your team, your whole team is cooked. And, dude, the guy that brought this up, Tommy G, I love this. And thank you to everyone who's leaving comments. Do us a favor. Be sure to hit the like button. Stuff like that fluffs the algorithm more than you can imagine. We appreciate that. But to me, the 2 things that are sticking with me the most right now that I spend my time thinking about are, one, that they wouldn't let DeMarvion Overshown wear number 0 because Rowdy wears 00. And then just the whole McCarthy thing where he tricked us all in a football barn. Like, he was out of coaching. he was in a barn with a bunch of retread coaches that weren't hired, and they were pretending to be real coaches. And he told Stephen Jones, hey, man, I've watched every single play of your season, and I can fix everything that's wrong with you guys. And Stephen believed it. And then at his press conference, he's like, well, I didn't see every play. And I'm like, you got him out of a football barn.
You know what he did? He went in there and he talked football to him. He went in there and talked that good football. And, man, Steven and Jerry were just sitting there nodding their head like, yeah, man, this guy talks good football, man. I like the way this guy talks that football, man. We're football. And it's just it's just the way that this thing is. That, there's been such criticism for the longest time about what the Jones family is in regards to football people, right? It's looked at as he's a businessman that came in here and built up this franchise and was pretending to be football man. And I think that what those guys probably do, this is probably not fair of me to say, but this is what I've created in my head, is those guys look to surround themselves with people that justify to themselves that they are what they want to be. In other words, I was headed down the path of, working at a petroleum company, but now I am a decision maker for the most important franchise in all of sports. That's really great. So you're going to surround yourself with people that build that up for you, as opposed to people that come in here and challenge notions. Like that whole idea of within an organization, what opposing viewpoints and friction can create is good, unless you are of the mindset that I want someone to placate me and make me feel like I am what I think I am. And I really think that's what this organization is and has been for 20 years. And that's why Jason Garrett was so fucking comfortable for them for so long. They knew Jason and he knew them, and they can all be in a room together and make each other feel like they're the right football people. And that's what, if you look at what Parcells did for this team, we can sit here and argue about what he was or wasn't. Man, he lit a fucking fire under this team. And there was effects from that reverberated for really quite a long time, because he came in and he fought everybody. He fought everybody every day. They fought over shit. And it went from 3 years of Campo. We got Campo here. Man, we've been with Campo we like Campo. Man, isn't he great? He's part of the fun days, man. And it went from that, where everyone's looking around telling each other they're football people, to this guy came in and fucking argued with everybody all day. And then suddenly the franchise started going back in a positive direction.
So, yeah,
It's cultural.
It's cultural, which why it comes back to Jerry for me. And we'll see if it changes when Jerry's gone at some point someday, hopefully many years from now. I don't wish anything bad on them at all.
Of course not.
I was talking about the Cowboys, and my daughter, who's 13, doesn't understand all this. She goes, wait, you don't like Jerry Jones? I go, well, I like him as a person. She goes, I thought he was your friend. I'm like, well, look, I'm a big fan of his, and I love how loyal they are, and they're a family business, and they run an NFL franchise like a corner store, But I just, as a Cowboy fan, these two things can be true. I really like Jerry Jones, and I'd love to have a beer with him. But I also wish he would let real football people run the organization. And I feel like I've been saying that now for 25 plus years. So I think we've solved a lot of this. But we need the Cowboys not to suck at tanking. They need to lose every single game, because what's at stake is, if they lose every game, they could end up having a top 5 pick. If they start winning a couple games, we don't need Cooper Rush to win any games. If they win a couple games, they might end up with the 15th pick. And I would like to get the highest possible pick, or lowest possible pick, however you want to say it, closest to number 1 as possible, because I want to trade back. I want to acquire additional picks. Start with the best possible draft pick, trade back as much as you can, because you need a lot of help. You need offensive linemen. That worked out great trading back this last year, because you got BB out of that. He looks like an absolute steal. And you need a lot of you need to hit on more picks. You need more picks. But I feel like talking this out has made me feel better about the Cowboys' future. I feel like next year or maybe the year after, depending on how their offseason is, they gotta lose every fucking game the rest of the way.
Here's what's going to happen. This is not what's going to happen. Here's what should happen. They're going to roll out Cooper Rush against the Eagles. And if they lose that game, it's going to be incredible. They still have hope because they think they can win their division. They know they're not going to be a wild card team, but they're looking at it going conceivably. This is the way you have to look at it in the NFL. Conceivably, we have 5 games left in our division and we could sweep it. Now, none of us believes that will happen, but I'm saying that's the way they're looking at it. If they lose to Philly on Sunday, they're going to be 3-6. They're going to be 1-1 in their division, and it's going to be very, very unlikely. Well, I'm sure there will be, some odds that'll say that here's the percentage. Once they lose to the Eagles and they're 3-6 and 1-1 in their division, they need to play Trey Lance. Otherwise, it is one of the worst trades in the history of the team. And they have to figure out if he has any value to them at all whatsoever.
You think so? But why? He's gone after this year anyways.
He may not be gone, Ben, because you may sign him to be your backup quarterback. Because here's another season with a major injury to Dak. Major being he's going to miss a quarter of the season coming up. My point being is that you've already given up the assets, and there's not going to be some great demand for him out there on the open market.
If you don't play him, there won't be demand. Maybe there will be a team that wants to take a shot. And if I'm him, I want to go somewhere where I can play. I don't want to be a backup at that age. I still, in my mind, think I can go be a starter somewhere. And if I stay with the Cowboys, I'm behind a $60 million quarterback. I'll be a backup forever. And if you play him and he does well, he could end up getting his next gig, right?
I mean, he could, but you've already given up the assets. You need to there was a reason you did it. So you need to understand if he's a player or not. They really have no idea if he's a player or not.
Yeah,
So if you roll Cooper Rush out there, you have a far greater chance of winning games.
I agree with that. But if you want to keep him, I don't want to play him because he'll play his way into a better situation, potentially. Or maybe he sucks so bad that you're like, okay, now we can keep him. But then you're like, but he sucks so bad. You are the ones who get to watch him in practice every day. What the fuck is he? Is he good? Is he worth keeping? Don't show the rest of the world. Anyways, I don't know. Backup quarterback is hopefully not that important. I hate that they gave up a 4th-round pick for him. All right, well, look, it is what it is. The Cowboys suck. This is kind of a funeral. This season is over. But I think we like the idea of them getting Cliff Kingsbury. We like the idea of them saying, no, we don't want 2 first-round picks for Micah. Let's go ahead and keep Micah. Let's sign Micah. And then I think we both still believe in Dak. And so to your point, if you got a good quarterback, you're alive in this league, right?
Yeah, they need I think that with a good draft and a new coaching staff, they can win the NFC East next year. I don't think it's as rotten to the core as everyone thinks it is. Now, I think their structure is fucked. We all agree with that. But again, they're coming off 3 straight 12-win seasons. That wasn't blind luck. And they lost depth, and that's what hurt them more than anything. That can be replenished.
Okay, so we are the Ben and Skin Show. Thank you for tuning in and watching this. You can watch us, listen to us 3 to 6 on 97.1 The Eagle every weekday with KT and Christina. We do this live stream. Hit subscribe. Hit the like button. Leave us a comment. Make sure you get notifications when we go live. We go live every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. doing this live stream. We also do a podcast called Poor Spacing with the Dallas Mavericks through their official Mavs YouTube channel, Studio 41. And in April, we gave away a meet and greet with Luka, and we thought that was really cool. That was my one of my only times to ever actually meet him. I know you've talked to him a million times.
He's in my back room right now. He's playing video games in the next room.
We're going to be giving away meet and greets with other professional athletes, celebrities, friends of ours. We're going to give away tickets to sporting events, big screen TVs, all this, things like that. If you sign up for the complete fun package, it's right there in the comments. I see Ben and Skin, our official account, said join the complete fun package to stay in touch with the show and enter to win prizes. It's free. It takes about 30 seconds. Click that link. It answered 2 questions like, where did you hear about the Ben and Skin Show? Give us your email address, and then every once in a while we can send you an email and tell you what we're doing. But in exchange, you will be entered to win every prize we ever give away. Who would you like?
Part of the complete fun package we're throwing out here.
Who would you like the next meet and greet to be with? Who would you really like to meet that you've never met or you'd want to hang out with? Go click that link and sign up for the complete fun package, and you'll be entered to win. So, anyways, this has been badass. Just been a little quickie, a Cowboys quickie. Anything else you want to say before we get out of here, Skin?
No, I like what John Bundy said. He said, don't forget to go vote, everyone. If you haven't voted yet, go vote, man. It's part of being a damn American, damn it. Do it! It's good for the soul.
This has been another Iron Balls production.
Iron Balls!